This meeting's being recorded. What do we have? Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to start this meeting. Thank you so much for coming to our December 12th CEC calendar, business, and joint President's Council meeting. I have a bit of a cold, and hopefully I won't get anybody sick, even those of you listening from at home. I am going to call this meeting to order at 6:33. We are coming to you live from PS 321 in Park Slope. And I will just ask everybody in attendance to please sign the attendance sheet at the back of the room. And if you are attending remotely, I am going to put a link in the chat. There you go. Please sign in. And before I call the roll, or my secretary calls the roll rather, I would like to invite the interpreters to please introduce themselves. And if you would like to step down here to do it, you may, so that everybody can hear you. You can come to the microphone. Yeah, the microphone's here, so you may as well.
Hola, buenos días. Voy a hacer la interpretación de español al inglés. Y si usted necesita este servicio, por favor, váyase atrás para recibir un aparato. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Our Mandarin interpreter. You don't have to come real close to the mic. It'll pick you up.
OK， 大家晚上好，我们是中文翻译。如果有需要国语翻译的，请到后面那张桌拿翻译的机器，谢谢。Thank you.
And now we have our Bangla interpreter.
Good evening. বাংলা ভাষাভাষী এখানে যারা আছেন তাদের সুবিধার্থে আমরা এখানে প্রবাসীর কাজ করব। এখানে পিছনে ইকুইপমেন্ট আছে, যারা ব্যবহার করবেন তাদের জন্য সুবিধার্থে আমরা ইংরেজি থেকে বাংলা এবং বাংলা থেকে ইংরেজি আমরা জানিয়ে দেব। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you so much. All right, I will turn it over to Nancy to call the roll.
Council member Nancy Randall.
She's going to be late. She's going to come in.
Councilmember Antonio Perez.
Present.
Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez Huerta. Present. Councilmember Ronaldo Cumming. Councilmember Leslie King.
Present.
Councilmember Hans Arietta. Councilmember Lauren Barton as absence today. Councilmember Mamoon Rashid.
He's going to be late too. He's going to be about a half an hour late.
Councilmember Danny Vidal. Councilmember Jonathan Davis.
Present.
And Councilmember Yuli.
Okay, so we do not unfortunately have quorum as of yet. Hopefully we will have quorum shortly. And as a result of that, well, let's go on to the interview.
Thank you all for coming to our meeting at District 15 Education Council tonight. We appreciate your time and we're glad that you can join us. For those of you who are new to CEC meetings, There are 32 CECs throughout the city, plus 4 citywide councils. Each CEC represents a community school district, and each is made out of 12 volunteer members, 10 of whom are elected parents in the district, and the remaining members are appointed by the Brooklyn Board President and 2 high school student members. The CEC 15 is a state-mandated public body that's responsible for ensuring that public school parents and the public have input in educational decisions that are made at the school district level. Our council reviews education policies and advocates for high-quality education that benefits all of our District 15 public elementary and middle school students. CEC 15 serves 36 elementary and middle schools and 1 high school under the oversight of our superintendent. CEC members serve in an advisory role on education matters to the district superintendent and the chancellor of the Department of Education and to the city and state officials. We approve district zoning lines submitted by the Department of Education. We evaluate our district superintendent. We review the district educational programs, and we support school leadership teams. We also submit recommendations for the School Construction Authority's annual capital plan. And as of recent amendments to the law, we also advise in the selection of parent coordinators. We actively seek input and feedback from the public, and we encourage you to visit our website at cecd15.org. Take a look at our Facebook page, connect us on Twitter, and write us on any of the issues that you want to address or learn about. Each CEC has a school liaison, and all of our names and in contact information is available on our website. And again, please remember to sign the attendance sheet in the back of the room.
Turn it over to our parliamentarian.
Thank you. Parliamentarian protocol.
Okay, tonight's calendar meeting is in person and will include a public comment period. We will take both remote and in-person comments to gather additional feedback from our families and school community members. You may leave your camera on, or for your own privacy, if you prefer, you may use audio only during the comment period and throughout the meeting. Rules of engagement. When you comment, please respect the privacy of others. Do not include names of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed from the meeting. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hand to comment or indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. If you are attending in person, you must sign the guest attendance sheet and indicate whether you would like to comment. Speakers will be called on one at a time and will be allowed 1 minute each for comment. We will hear from as many speakers as time allows. It is possible that not every comment question will be given time. So the best way to get your questions answered is always to write the CEC at cec15@schools.nyc.gov. CEC members will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and are each permitted 1 2-minute comment question. If members do not have a comment, they may cede their time to the chair. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Leslie. All right, so at our last meeting, we held our last meeting at the Wind Shelter, and we promised the public that we would put the resolution on the 60-day rule up on the top of our agenda. So we are going to hold that vote now. I think it is an issue that is urgent. Transferring these families every 60 days is cruel. It doesn't support children academically, socially, physically, emotionally. It's a worst practice if there ever was one. And it doesn't create space in our shelter system. It just sort of reshuffles the deck. And I received a phone call last week about some related issues that I feel like I should share in this meeting. there have been some very inhumane raids taking place at the shelters, sort of under the pretext of finding hot plates in the rooms. They are raiding all of the rooms and taking any little bits of food that families have. And there is also sort of this unresolved issue of children under 18 being unable to enter the shelters without adult supervision. And as a consequence, young children are having to stand outside the shelters in the cold, unsupervised, until their parents get home for the day. And that's a complicated issue because the shelters can't legally allow children in unsupervised. But this is just to say this is a very complex issue. And I'm glad that we are all here and we can take a vote on this. I'm not going to read the entire resolution again. We read it at our last calendar meeting. I will just read the last resolve. The resolution resolves that CEC 15 urges Chancellor David C. Banks and the Panel for Education Policy to request that Mayor Eric Adams waive implementation of the 60-day rule in respect of families with children enrolled in New York City public schools. So I'm going to turn it over to my parliamentarian for a brief public comment period.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to our audience. Anybody in our audience would like to have a question or comment about anything? Yes.
I just want to say thank you for bringing it to this opportunity and very appreciated for, I just want to reemphasize everything you said and I've seen in the resolution. It is very significant educational challenges for children and families and schools. I will, welcome many of these families. And I think it's really important to understand what is happening to you, what's happening when you sort of folks there and up there. So that's a lot of people that think that CSA saying it.
We'd like to thank you for putting this resolution on the table. It's important to have this advocacy, and for that, we work together to make sure that students are treated fairly and equally should. We don't support what's happening. We received calls earlier this week.
Oh, yeah. The mic is really just so that the public and the Zoom can hear.
So we this week we received calls from something else taking place at a hotel, not in our district but right outside our district, and there'll be new lines as of January 1st. So there's this hotel that's a shelter called La Quinta. I don't know if you all have heard about that. So we've been in constant contact with Shahana Hanif, who is currently the council member in that district. So we mobilized to get folks from our both offices there to see what was going on. We were not allowed to go in and ask to leave. So this has been escalated, but again, we want to commend you for putting this forward and we can support. So,
Thank you so much.
I'd also like to open it up to anyone that's on Zoom. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand or put your comment in the chat. Now I'm going to open it up to council members. If anyone down at the other end of the no comments? Sure. Okay.
It's as far as it goes. It's as far as it's gonna go.
Hi, everyone. Antonio, thanks for bringing the resolution, and I'm really perplexed and horrified that we're even discussing this as a potential policy solution to what is a human rights crisis among us. And we had the highest teacher attrition rate from 2021 to 2023 that we've ever had here in New York City, at almost 9%. Almost one in 10 teachers left our city to teach elsewhere, or not at all. And in addition to that, the rate was 3 times that for high poverty schools. And we know one of our council special concerns is that our migrant students in this district are overwhelmingly placed in Title I schools. So citywide, that's also a trend. So the amount of attrition we're driving, or that the mayor's driving through this decision, is grotesque, and will not only undermine children and families and really do a lot of serious wounding for social and emotional development for kids, both the kids who are in the school and the kids who have to go, but also really turn our human rights, or our human rights and our human resources situation upside down. So it's really just contemptible. Thank you.
The resolution. Discussing limitation of transitions.
Hi, my name is Hans Arrieta. Thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. I've been working with some people from the community. I really support the community from Park Sloan, who's helping the kids from all the shelters to stay in the shelters and to stay in the school. I think it's very important to keep the kids in the school and not take them out. I think they own the right, to learn. And all right here, we want the same thing for our kids, just to have a very good education. So we have to all respect to the teachers to put kids in one class and they take the kids away and then put it back and take it away. I think they have a right, to a house and for education. So I really support the community, we support all these kids. Also the UFT, the United Federation of Teachers, they're giving a lot of support to them too. Thank you.
I'll pass.
Just expressing my heartfelt support for this resolution and this community that is working so hard. I really appreciate the push that we receive from parents to make sure that it's at the top of our minds and our agenda. I think that destabilizing the immigrant community in New York City is destabilizing just our children's education as a whole, not just those that are directly affected. So I am all for this resolution.
I just want to reiterate how important this resolution is for the families and the students in New York City who are the most vulnerable and need that consistency and the ability to have a safe place to stay, to be able to go to school and not continually being uprooted. So I wholeheartedly support this resolution.
I echo all my council members and wholeheartedly support this resolution as well. Thank you.
All right, why don't we call the roll to vote? It'll flicker up. I support the resolution.
Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez Rocca.
I vote yes.
Councilmember Nancy Cruz, I vote yes. Councilmember Donalda Chuni. Councilmember Leslie King.
Yes.
Councilmember Hans Marietta.
Yes.
Councilmember Jonathan Davis.
Yes.
And with that, the
The resolution passes. All right. May I have that map, please? Thank you. All right, let's move on. Good evening, everybody, again. This is the first of 4 joint President's Council meetings. The next joint meeting will be our legislative breakfast, which will be at Brooklyn Borough Hall on Friday, January 5th at 9:45 a.m. A light breakfast will be served in the mezzanine, and discussions with elected officials will take place in the adjacent courtroom. There will be 2 more joint President's Council meetings when CEC members will attend the President's Council meetings remotely. And those are 2 Mondays, January 29th and March 25th, both at 6:30 p.m. and links will be shared with everybody. Before I turn it over to our PTA president, I actually want you guys to come up here, if you wouldn't mind. We can sit somebody here, and you can move one down, one down. So let's set them up here. I'm gonna make a few announcements before I turn it over to you guys. First, I want to thank Principal Phillips for having us here and accommodating our meeting. This building is exploring an exciting change that will provide more space and enable the school to meet the new class size mandates, which is very exciting. It will enable teachers to provide the mandated services in appropriate locations rather than improvise noisy hallways and crowded spaces. And the school won't have to utilize their TCUs, which are transportable classroom units, for everybody who doesn't know. And the DOE is planning a proposal to recite grades K through 1 of PS 321 from this building to a beautiful new building on President Street for the 24-25 school year, and a joint public hearing will take place on January 4th at 6 p.m. I'm going to add the information about that hearing to the chat. It's going to get information to the chat. I'm going to put it in there. Oh, it's too long. All right, I'll add the link. I'll just add the link. Principal Phillips, would you like to come up and say anything? Can sit.
Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. We're happy to have you at PS 321. And I just want to say, since you mentioned the reciting, that we are excited about the possibilities for our school. We've had meetings. We've had a meeting with our community, with our SLT. We've surveyed staff, and there is a lot of enthusiasm. You know, there's some possible issues that we're concerned about, especially a lack of outdoor space. We're hoping very much to be able to get street closure during a few hours of the day. So any support anybody can give to that, we would appreciate when we get there, assuming this all happens. But I think, you know, it could be really exciting for the school and for the community. I'm also hoping that it will allow us to have pre-kindergarten for the first time in probably over 20 years. So we're waiting to hear about that, but I think there's some great possibilities. So very nice having you all here.
All right. Let me go back to my announcements. So I also, this week, or last week, I had the pleasure of attending a meeting with Brooklyn Safe Street Coalition. This group quickly mobilized after 7-year-old Kamari Hughes was hit and killed by an NYPD tow truck in Fort Greene. And Hans, you and Donaldo were both at that meeting, and I welcome either of you to give a little bit of a update on what was discussed.
Well, I have the opportunity to go to when November 19 to the World Day of remembering like this, all the families who was try to remember all their relatives who was killed for the car, for the truck. So sad, 11 kids so far with the year. So we have the opportunity to I'm Brooklyn Safety Street Coalition too, in part, in case, to let you know what I am. And we marched around the road in Queens, and was very impressed, like every corner, like see all the pictures of the relatives, or the kids, old people who was struck for a car. It was like every 5 minutes, every corner, really sad, very sad. You gotta see I don't know, like, you hear the expression before, you got to be there to see this, all the strollers, all the little shoes, all the little sneakers, all these babies. It was like very, very, very painful. But, so that's why we try not to make the streets safe. So far, we have a meeting, and our coalition demand to meet with the Mayor Adam. What really happened, it was a productive conversation with the mayor and senior team, like the Department of Health, Education, the DOT Commissioner, the NYPD Chief, Transit, Senior Strategic, the Deputy Mayor. And we discussed about it. So far, we get like 3 of the 5 policies we was asking for, intersection redesign, like they like expansion of the safe cars, like, some kind of fleet technology, traffic injury, fatality, information. And we're still fighting, for crossing guards, funding, and more open streets for the schools, like, when the kids are in the school, no cars around the schools, kind of thing like that. So we really we're still working on this thing. I think we're gonna have some kind of productive action this year with Mayor Adam. And Nalda, do you want to add something?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you, Hans.
All right,
Thanks for being there.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Hans. For anybody who doesn't know, daylighting is when you make it, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you make it so that when you come to the corner, you can see around those parked cars that are parked right up to the curb. I think it forces the sidewalk to push them further a bit away so that you can see the oncoming traffic. And so there was some commitment from the mayor to provide more daylighting, and that was one of the 3 points that the committee took. My final 2 announcements are about Thursday. This Thursday, there are 2 very important meetings, to attend, and the first is a public hearing on hybrid meetings at 11 a.m. Thursday, December 14th. They're soliciting feedback on the implementation of hybrid meetings in public bodies, because on July 24th, the hybrid option expires. So they want to see how this has been working in these public bodies. So that is an opportunity for anybody to go and testify. And I encourage you all to do so. And we also, on Thursday, December 14th, we are going to hold our Chancellor's Town Hall at MS 51. The doors open at 6 p.m. and the meeting begins at 6:30. So be there or be square. This is your opportunity to ask the man at the top about anything education related. And I'm sure that the presidents of our President's Council have a lot of issues on their minds. So I will turn it over to our fearless presidents of the presidents of the presidents. Alton Dodson of PS 295 and Roxanne High-Lash, PTA president of PS 295. Thank you and welcome. Oh boy.
Thank you, Antonia. It's very good to be here for our first CEC President's Council joint meeting tonight. My name is Elton Dodson, and I am the PT President for PS 295, as Antonia just said. For those that aren't familiar with the President's Council, it's simply district by district, the body of all the PTA presidents of that district who collaborate and sometimes commiserate together for our responsibilities for our respective schools to figure out how we can best support each other and ultimately center our children's education. All of the people on the President's Council are obviously very good people because the PTA president, by definition, also must serve on the school leadership team as well. You can imagine there's a lot of concerns that have come up in our first few President's Council meetings this year. And the first and foremost of those is, of course, the austerity cuts throughout the city of New York. It's affected everyone and everything, none the least of which is the Department of Education. So that has put a tremendous amount of pressure on our administrators, our schools, superintendent obviously, but also on our PTAs, because the PTA often is the one that has to fill the gaps. When, surprise, surprise, our principal has a budget meeting and you're losing, as a very close example, your entire music program. So PS 295 is the studio school for arts and culture. Yet we had our entire music program along with our music teacher, of course, excess last year. So the PTA was able to come together. At 295, we call it the Family Teacher Association, the FTA. Came together and in about 30 days raised $50,000 to restore our music program, which has enabled us to have our band program for our fourth and fifth graders this year and retain our music program. So an incredible outpouring of community support. But one thing the President's Council brought up collectively after our very first meeting is the actual inequity of that. And so this is a serious issue that's always persisted, which is that the schools that need the resources most are not going to have the schools that have PTAs that are going to be the most effective at raising those amounts of funds. So you'll see schools that have relatively wealthy families have PTAs with enormous budgets. I was talking to our treasurer at our last executive committee meeting, and she was like, yeah, I saw the budget at this other school, and and their reserve is bigger than our budget for like 3 years. So the inequity of this, and it's certainly not the PTA's fault, but it creates these persistent inequities across schools even greater, right? And so, as a testament to District 15 and the schools and the parents that we have, the first ideas that came out of that meeting were, it's complicated, but can we discuss pooling resources so that funds that are raised above a certain threshold by each PTA would be put into a pool fund, which then would be allocated according to a formula to be determined based on combating those inequities. I say all this because many schools are facing existential crises. throughout our district, 295 being one of them, because of the combination of declining enrollment and declining funds for our schools. That's a death spiral for our schools. Because how do you bring children back? And how do you increase the enrollment of schools that are extraordinarily valuable and necessary to our district, but whose very lives are threatened over the coming years by this decline in enrollment, which you cannot fix when it's being exacerbated by your programs being cut, by there being, these days, no real after-school programs or alternatives, and getting funding for after-school programs to make it affordable, which is another enrollment attraction, but also it's an equity issue for families. It's really become this spiraling crisis for our families, and our PTAs are doing our best. We're working hard to sell enough cupcakes to make up for the austerity cuts coming from the mayor's office. But as you can imagine, there's probably not enough cupcakes in Brooklyn to save our schools solely that way. So I think that there's a lot of options. One, PTAs have to continue to do our work, which is to hold fundraisers, raise as much money as possible, work with our principals to make sure that their needs are being met to the extent that we can help. But also work together as a community to get the word out, because I think that being on the PTA has become a little bit more, I don't want to say politicized, but certainly we need to pay more attention to policy, just because our schools aren't coasting by any stretch of the imagination. They're struggling. And if our schools are struggling, then our community is not centering our children. And that's not a future we want to look at in 10, 15 years down the line in New York City, to see what's happened to our city when we have not prioritized our things. I reached out to our President's Council members, just a couple things that I wanted to bring up that I heard about today, aside from the things that I've already mentioned. As we know, again, with the budget cuts, the mid-year cuts happened this year. So any of the cuts that happened because enrollment wasn't what they thought it was going to be, schools were held harmless because of federal funding, especially during COVID, but that has expired. So schools are that have already received budget cuts at the beginning of the year are now receiving budget cuts now as a result of that. So PS10 reached out to Roxanne and I today. I never get that right, speaking of education.
You have to say,
me. Thank you.
You have to say the one that you say.
Got it. I'm going to forget that in 5 minutes, but thank you for that. So Roxanne we were both communicating about this today. And so PS10, their understanding is that the money was not taken, and maybe you can address this later in your comments, but they retained it as a sort of loan, which is something I've never heard about before. I don't know if maybe the nomenclature got confused in that. But if there are options to hold on to funds, it's something that the PTA president and the President's Council would like to know about. So I don't know what the specific situation with 10 was, but she didn't want me to bring it up and sort of get some clarification on that. I think the only other thing, aside from I wanted to reiterate the crossing guard situation. I mean, we've had a lot of tragedies this year already. I know we're close to the end of the year with children in our community. 295 has not had crossing guards since COVID, since before COVID. And, like my daughter's in 4th grade, she's begging me to be able to do self-dismissal and things like that. And I really pride myself on trying not to be classified as a helicopter parent at all. But without a crossing guard, and considering how people drive, especially since COVID, when we're standing on that light right at the school, there is not a single time that we're waiting on that light that someone's not going to run. So you can imagine without a crossing guard that, parents are reluctant, or I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm reluctant to send my 4th grader out to cross streets in that environment. I recognize that has nothing to do with the DOE, it has to do with NYPD, who, despite the fact that they have received the least amount of cuts from these austerity cuts, cut crossing guards by 18%, which to me is unconscionable. And I mention this because I would like to talk to the community tonight and say, every month your precinct has a community board meeting, and that is exactly where you should go to discuss crossing guards, because each precinct should be able to get crossing guards to your school if you're the squeaky wheel. So be squeaky for the kids. The last thing I will say is that there's been some concerns about testing opt-outs and whether or not those requests are being honored or pushed back against. And I know that the policy from Tweed is that if parents choose to opt out, that administrators and principals should make the argument that the data is important and the benefits to the children, but that if that doesn't overcome it, that should be honored. So I just wanted to make sure that I communicated that was a concern that's been at the President's Council, and to make sure that we get clarification on what opt-out looks like in District 14. And over to you. Thank you very much, and thanks for hosting us tonight.
Thank you, Elton. Hi, my name is Roxanne Hylash. I'm the Parent Association President for PS 958, which is a new school. We're in our second year in Sunset Park. We are an inclusive school, and we are sort of building from the ground up. We started with 3K, pre-K, and kindergarten, and every year we're adding a grade. So this year we added first grade, and we will go up to fifth. And just adding on to what Elton said about these budget cuts, we've had a lot of challenges with the budget ourselves of not receiving the funds to open up a new grade year because they're just basing the numbers off of last year's enrollment. And when our principal went to ask for clarification, they just said, well, that's just the way it works for all new schools, which I think is pretty inappropriate because it's not how you build a school, especially when it's at its most like vulnerable, when it's trying to really like set up the culture and the systems. Is not the time when you just like don't give it money to open up a new grade. And also following on the crossing guards, our school, which is an inclusive school, has kids of lots of different abilities. My son uses a walker to get around, and one of my daughter's classmates is in a wheelchair. And we have no crossing guards. We have no support. We have a very busy intersection that involves an auto body shop, a gas station, a bus depot, and many times the cars are driving on the sidewalk to get out of the gas station and onto the street. It's pretty horrendous. And speaking of the community council meeting, I was actually double booked tonight because our 72nd precinct community council meeting is happening right now at 7 p.m. it started. And we've been going for the last few months to advocate for our school. We've been told that we should not expect a crossing guard this year, which I find pretty horrendous. This is after they told us that if we could find people to apply for the jobs, they would fill them. And then we had 7 people from our community apply for jobs, and none of them have ever been contacted. So the crossing guard situation is really bad. We've sort of informally polled the presidents in our meetings, and a majority of the schools have either lost a crossing guard or have no crossing guards. I mean, you're just seeing both of us are at schools with no crossing guards. This is pretty unacceptable. I mean, just these last few months, we had this very tragic and horrific death, and I can't believe that we're still having a conversation trying to advocate for our children's safety. So that's something. And then I just wanted to add on another thing that came up from our presidents was the idea of Title I funds, and that in this year of budget cuts and losing funding across a lot of our programs for our schools, many schools were hit with losing their Title I funding and losing all their funds. And so there's a question out to the district, the chancellor, whoever, to understand like what is being done to help to alleviate those burdens, because for some of these schools, they may be dropped 1% and they've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then there's other schools that have been, reporting for whatever, just demographic data and sort of continuing to get funds. Of course, like everyone should be getting these funds. And then separately, like there's a question about the percentage of like that New York City is 4 out of 5 of the boroughs have a 60% threshold, and then Staten Island has a 48.5% threshold. This is based on poverty levels, but if you look at poverty levels across counties in the state, there are a number of counties that are up there with New York City counties, and those counties only have a 40% threshold rate. And so it's significantly harder for New York City schools to receive Title I funds when they need it so much. So that's another thing that we wanted to bring up here. And thank you all for attending and advocating for our children.
Yeah, thank you for all that. Thank you for putting all that on the table. That was great. I wondered, are any of the other PTA presidents in the audience or in the, oh, great. Hi, do you have anything you'd like to add? I'm wondering if anybody in the chat is PTA president. Do you recognize any of these names? Because, Lauren Sharp.
Hi, everybody. This is Lauren. How's everybody doing? Hi.
Is it possible to unmute her?
Can you hear me?
I could put in 1 second. Oh, you're gonna unmute.
Okay, how's that?
That's as loud as it's gonna.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I'm echoey. Thank you, Elton, and thank you, Roxanne. I'm Lauren. I'm one of the co-presidents of PS261, along with Nadia Williams. And briefly, we have a couple of things that we're looking to tackle budget-wise, and one of those is our school turf. It is a public park on the weekends, and it is a public space that is used by so many folks, especially our soccer field. The turf is pulling up and it is becoming dangerous with nails coming up out of the ground. We've had some funding promised from Reynoso's office, but we would love help expediting that process. We've made those calls from 311, but any push towards getting that that moving as fast as we can would be amazing. We are also interested in there's a couple of bathroom renovations that need to happen in our school in order to sort of facilitate more gender neutral bathrooms. And this is all written down in a little statement we put together. And our third priority is we changed our name from Philip Livingston to Seporia Mills after our late and wonderful principal. And we are still working on getting a sign that reflects that name change. We had an initial bid and then another bid more recently that was significantly higher and had fundraised for this. So we're just really trying to push that along so we can fully embrace that visible reminder of who we are now. And Elton has a copy of this that he'll share with y'all so you can have it on file. All these little things, and there's a few other things too, but I won't take any much more time. Just thanks for listening.
Wonderful.
We also have a comment from Cassidy online. I would just like to add that in addition to budget cuts, schools are being held accountable for registered loss for the first time. That's going to have an even greater impact on the number of school programs as we head into the spring. I know it's a big issue at MS 447. Yes.
So I just want to add to what I'm saying, because her frustration personally is my frustration as well, because since her school opened up, my office, myself personally, has been fighting with the 7-2 to get a crossing guard there. At first, they gave us an excuse that there wasn't enough students, still because it was a brand new school. They didn't have, so they couldn't justify throwing a crossing guard to bring it there, and that was completely unacceptable. Then they gave us that same story about we're going to hire and put a new class out. So we ourselves, our office did as much recruitment as possible. We were handing out flyers at the different schools. We had parents from the different schools apply. I recently had a communication directly with NYPD. So because we weren't getting answers from the 2nd precinct, so we went above them, and basically went to one police plaza. They informed us that they had canceled the last class due to the cuts, and that we should not anticipate getting any crossing guards anytime soon. So it's a big frustration because it shows us what our city prioritizes, and you can see what the priorities are just by looking at the budget. So as a parent myself, I feel this pain because my kids go to school right nearby, and we've been in constant contact with Institution Bureau around this. So it's not something that we're going to give up easily. We're still fighting for that. My chief of staff is actually at the second.
I have some parents there tonight.
And just for me, listening to every email or text, as far as the response to where that is, I would love to get the names.
Yes,
of the
I have them.
people that actually.
I have them.
That will be something that I can do.
Yes.
To kind of push from my end.
Yes.
I did talk about 36 students that, I know that are very well now, November.
Yep.
I did that, so I know them very well.
Yeah.
So let me see what my
Okay.
responses are,
Okay.
and I can see how else I can push.
Yeah, thank you.
We do recognize that because it's NYPD, it has to do with their
I
budget.
know.
It's dependent on how NYPD utilizes their budget.
And I can share the list.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like
So
17.
It's seven.
same thing,
I only have a list of 7 because I don't know the other people,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
But I'll take your seven,
Yeah.
take whatever you
yeah,
have,
I
and
have
then
7.
I can state that, I'm not sure if you saw the article yesterday, but the mayor has now instilled 120 of his 250 safety agents, that were not going to be in sites, now being processed to be placed on school safety agents. I don't know what the next steps are for that, but again, that's an NYPD thing.
And-
I'll
yeah,
try to get a
yeah,
response
thank
from
you,
Captain
thank
Suarez
you.
and Golden Guns to turn up.
Thank you. It's very, I mean, we have 2-year-olds at our school. We have a lot of kids with a lot of developmental needs. Yeah, I mean, it is, yeah, we have an Ames, we have like one of the only Ames programs outside of District 75. There's a lot of, yeah. Anyway, not that any kid deserves anything more, but there's a lot of very vulnerable children that, I mean, I can also share with you, I'll share with you a statement that Amelia McCarthy is one of our students. She's in a wheelchair. Her mother wrote a statement to be read at the precinct meeting tonight, and I can send it to you. It's a pretty strong, powerful statement about what she has to do to get her daughter to school and home from school safely.
There's another comment from someone online, Janet Mart. I think it's unacceptable to have a school serving students with disabilities and no crossing guard. In the meantime, the 72nd precinct should provide an NYPD officer at drop-off and dismissal. And she also said there are approximately 6 schools within the same area serving students with varying disabilities.
I mean, after the last precinct meeting, they parked a car in the, just like a police car in front of the school for like 2 or 3 days in the morning, but the police, like, they didn't get out of the car, it just sat there, so.
Are there any other presidents in the,
That's it. Does anybody else on the Zoom have comments that they'd like to put in the chat or raise your hand? Oh, here, we have someone. Yes.
I just want to reiterate, PS 124 for President, just the community sort of fund for the PTAs. Our school is not able to fundraise in the same way most other schools are, and as we sort of heard things happening in temporary housing, much of our resources are being focused on supporting those families as well as other families in our school. So if we are able to fundraise, that money goes towards providing food and clothing and other essential items to families. And we don't ask for families to be appropriate. So the community fund would be.
So I would just say thank you for all of that, and you're going to send me the list of SEA projects and repairs, and I'll add them to our spreadsheet. And if any other PTA presidents want to email me directly. And please, obviously, reach out to your liaisons with your repairs and capital plan projects as soon as you can. So thank you so much.
We'll return your desk to you.
All right, and now we'll move on to superintendent report. Oh, okay.
Okay. You guys let me know when we're ready and then I'll get started.
You are ready.
All right. You ready with the PowerPoint now? Awesome. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to get to the next slide, and I just want to honor all the celebrations we have in this particular month of December. Those of you who are already celebrating Hanukkah in the middle of it, those who will be celebrating Christmas when it comes, those who are celebrating Kwanzaa, and all of us who are celebrating a new year coming up soon. And for those of you who don't celebrate these things, just enjoy the winter break, so to speak, in terms of our school communities. Hope you're with your loved ones and all. Next slide. I just wanted to pinpoint just one school. There's several that we can, but I don't want to spend all evening. And so just a shout out to PS 896, who's going deeper into their project-based learning work. Strong small groups, differentiated instruction around data and PBL. What we like about this is that they're using their community resources and thinking about what it looks like. One of our principals was in partnership with the Chinese embassy around the work that they're doing. And so students were able to understand what life is like in China and thinking about the housing because it's so crowded in the country, thinking about creating tiny homes, but taking it to another level and thinking about how they would create and build homes based on square footage with amounts of money that they have in order to create creative spaces. And so being able to do that in the dual language Chinese programs this year has been amazing. So we just wanted to highlight some of the work at 896. I'm really going to talk a little bit about the progress monitoring of our DCEP, which is the District Comprehensive Education Plan for the 23-24 school year. Last month, I talked about the results of the 22-23 school year. We're going to also talk about a little bit about the curriculum rollout, the district-wide initiatives, and then a little bit about class size and where we are as a district. So if we go to the next slide, priority one is about ELA. So we're coaching K-2 educators. We're have our literacy leads training series. We're doing a lot of resource sharing through our admin hub. So schools have resources from across the district and across other districts. And then we're doing some collaborative curriculum learning with our vendors, our partners Wit and Wisdom and HMH, which principals and APs have been going through. But we still have to do more. So we're working on making sure that our district's leads receive certification for K-2 foundational literacy coaching. We're doing some curriculum shifts. We're providing some in-school support for the curriculum pilot, which is schools are going to start implementing. And then offer ongoing guidance to school leaders on evidence-based literacy practices to improve ELA in their particular schools. Next slide. In terms of AIS support, we have those literacy screener guidelines that are helping us really inform what instructional moves schools are going to make. That's what they're using the universal screener information for. We're working on principals thinking about what their rollout assessment plan or curricular plan are going to be for their schools that touch on teachers, parents, and students as it relates to ELA curriculum for the next school year. There's a lot of tier 2 targeted group sessions that we provide across the district. I'm not going to go into details of each one of these, but you could see how we're supporting schools from tier 1, 2, and 3, and then some of our next steps as it relates to that, up to and including workshops for parents and parent coordinators focusing on supporting students in their literacy journey, particularly as we start to think about what rollout's going to look like for next year. In our next slide, we're talking about our priority. Did I skip one? Yeah, supportive environment. We're talking about the priorities here. As you know, last year, we met 2 of the 3 goals. In this particular goal, we're trying to improve planning and addressing the goal during the school social work and school counseling meetings, individualized case consultation with counselors and cohorts, and building cell capacity around all aspects of the work to help create more visibility of supports at schools, and thinking about how we're supporting our paraprofessionals to provide additional supports in the classroom as opposed to just being a parent in a classroom, but using their skill set and supporting them with that. So we created a series from January to June to provide support for paraprofessionals during the Monday PD time when teachers are getting professional learning, that paras can get professional learning, whether it be behavioral positive reinforcement, whether it be support in instructional tier 2 and tier 3 supports like Great Leaps or Reading Rescue, specific programs so that we can build our instructional capacity with all staff members across our schools. And I really do have to shout out the principals advisory who advise us to say, we need more support for our paras. And as a result of that, we're implementing that for our schools. I also want to shout out Valeria, who's not here, Valeria Osa, who's on my team. She's a supervising social worker. She helps lead the work with the counselors and the social workers. And the great thing about her is she's been great at getting grants from the state. So we have our mitigating trauma grant that's been supporting children in schools and supporting counselors with that work. One thing I like about what she's been doing is norming what counseling looks like across our district, so that she's using the nationwide school counseling plan as our model and our framework for how counseling is looking across our district so that it's collectively coherent across the district. And so we're happy about that particular work. On the next slide, while we don't have any set specific math curricula that we're asking schools to implement, our middle schools we're pushing to illustrative math, and a lot of our schools are moving towards illustrative math. And as I shared with you last month, a lot of the reasoning behind that has to do with the fact that illustrative math is more conceptual understanding, but also getting into the fluency and being able to support students with their computation, but in ways that they understand the process of the mathematics while engaging in the mathematics, as opposed to just being told or just given a particular strategy. So you're seeing that our math is being supported for the APs, math coaches, teacher leaders, and we have ongoing professional development. And we have a series in terms of those schools that are looking to implement. And so we have a K-2 illustrative math PL series, 3-5, 6-12, and then K-5 Eureka Squared, because we recognize a lot of our other schools are using Eureka Squared. And that's also similar to illustrative math in that it's conceptual understanding. And we have a lot of schools that are doing that. So we're moving towards illustrative math and Eureka Squared as selections for our district. It's not a mandate, but a lot of schools are working towards that as they're recognizing the need to address the NGLS standards, which are the new standards that students are being assessed by. Our next steps for this work is really strengthening tier 1 and tier 2 instruction. So we're tightening and screwing the bolts in terms of our tier 1 instruction and thinking about when students do need tier 2 instruction, what does that look like and what is it research based? In terms of the tier 1, it's really that small group instruction that's in the classroom. So it could be either small group instruction, station teaching, individualized instruction that's happening in small groups while other kids are working on other things that might be independent or in other small groups or stations. Next slide. Our college and career readiness, we're excited about that. We've been using the lessons in the career pathways through the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Our high schools offer the College Now series. AP through the College Board is being approved for our high schools, and Brooklyn High School of the Arts has actually is working towards submitting high-level arts courses to the DOE so that students can actually get college preparatory course approval, and students will actually get college arts credits for participating in those programs. They're filling out the documentation to get approval from the state. So we're excited about that. As you know, 497, which is our Borum Hill High School, is an IB program. It's a 6-12 program. So we're excited about that. And then a lot of the showcases that I've told you about that you'll see in subsequent slides. But what are we doing? We're still working on our STEM exploration, which is in partnership with multiple professors that are going to do STEM work with our 5th, 8th, and 11th grade students at Governor's Island. We invite all to come, as well as our CEC members, to participate in that event. It's going to be on Governor's Island on May 18th. We have our parent symposium led by our own Christine Farrell here of Learning Together on June 8th. And then we're working on developing also a district-wide career fair, so students get exposure to not just the doctor, the lawyer, and the teacher, but also careers that they may not know of that are lucrative in their futures, so to speak. Our next slide. We've moved towards DOE messaging systems. So many of you may have seen something coming from the district. If you have a NISCA account, you're seeing some information as it relates to what's happening at the district level or anything that's coming out from the district. So we're happy about that. But we need to increase our NISCA accounts, and Christine and the parent coordinators are working to increase that by 7% at least. Feedback from the parent coordinators is sharing family space info with CEC and PAPTAs, which we saw, we're starting to see some of that. And we want to raise awareness about workshops and family space. We've been providing a lot of workshops for parents that are coming, and what parents have been asking us for is more of the series. So we've been working with our team members to create, instead of one-off sessions, sessions that have multiple series to help parents navigate the tools. It's our hope that what we're providing to parents, they use as tools to be able to advocate not only for themselves, but eventually lead that advocacy as a group, right? And then our Family Leadership Institute curricular training has completed 100% of our PCs. And so over time, we're going to analyze the attendance at schools based on workshops to think about how we're supporting, specifically as we think about our immigrant families, because we have a lot of asylum-seeking families. Some we know, some we don't know. They self-identify. We're not allowed to ask, nor we do ask, but sometimes they do share that information, and so we try to help them accordingly. In terms of chronic absenteeism, I looked today. In total, we are at 19.2%. 17.2% is at risk of chronic absenteeism, and right now we have 2% that are considered chronic absent in our district. We are on this every single day. We are aware of some of the issues, and the schools that are our highest flyers, we've been having meetings with them to specifically pinpoint the reasons why and figure out how to address. We recognize that for us as a district, some of it has to do with transportation issues in our district, specifically for the schools that we've been monitoring the most. And we're working with OPT to try to close those gaps with John Benson, who's been really supportive in trying to close those gaps. And so right now we're at 93.4% as a district. In previous years, we've always been number 5. We're now number 4. We've moved past District 2 at this point. It's District 26, District 25, District 20, and now 15, then followed by District 2 and followed by District 30. In the past, we've been in the running between the last 2 and 30. So something we're doing is kind of working. We just need to push more so that it could work even better. We're meeting with schools constantly to figure out what those challenges are. We're targeting strategic places and figuring out why, the root cause of the issue, as opposed to saying we've I-logged, which means we've documented. We've sent people to the houses. We've made phone calls. We're trying to go steps beyond that to figure out what else are barriers that are preventing children from getting to school. So in one particular school, we identified that the doctor's appointments are all being scheduled during the day and parents are keeping them home instead of bringing them in. So they've been reaffirmed that when they go to a morning doctor's appointment, they can still come to school and they get marked for the full day and not for a partial day. We've also identified with talking to certain clinics to thinking about extending their hours, particularly NYU Langone, who's actually now extended their work hours to 8 p.m. for doctor's appointments for our community in some schools. So now parents have been changing some of those doctor's appointments. They've also been supporting with creating teletherapy. So some students have to go to the clinic. Instead of going to the clinic, parents can do it virtually and they don't have to actually go to the clinic, which saves some particular time at schools. Some of the other things that we're doing is we're having events during the holidays, before and after, so that parents are less likely to take those days. We recognize that sometimes vacations with a family of 4 or 5 is costing a lot more money to leave the day of a vacation. So families leave 2 or 3 days before. And so we've been working with families and figuring out what that's going to look like in advance to help them save, but also reduce the number of days that students are absent. So rather than being absent for a whole week, they might be absent for 2 days, which cuts the amount of days that they may or may not be out. So those are some of the things we've been doing. And we're doing some more root cause analysis with individual schools. We're working with the regional managers and holding attendance teachers more accountable, because now, even though they get rated by the principals at the schools that they're assigned to, they report to the superintendent's office. And so we're leading that work with moving them. Next slide. A little bit about curriculum rollout. We've been establishing, preparing, communicating expectations for implementation. District literacy leads are participating in monthly series to build capacity to support literacy instructional shifts and curriculum rollout. School leaders engaged in trainings, intervisitations, collaborative planning. They consistently are still doing that. Many schools are doing implementation of Into Reading and piloting Wit and Wisdom, which Wit and Wisdom has given the materials to our schools, the modules to actually pilot. So we got those materials for free and at no cost to the schools to be able to start implementing the pilot of seeing how this is going to look and how it's going to look slightly different at each school based on where they are. We've been collaborating with those vendors for professional learning sessions. 32% of our schools are currently piloting Wit and Wisdom as of now modules. By March 2024, at least 42% of the schools would have piloted Wit and Wisdom modules. And the district team is collaborating on the district level for curriculum rollout supports at the district level, surface information around the curricula, but each school is charged with creating a curriculum rollout for their school community because every school community is unique and different and is at a different pace or space as it relates to this work. Each school is required to move this work around teacher, student, staff. Staff, parents, students. Yeah, got that right. Okay. Staff, parents, and students. January 2024, we're initiating communication sessions with parent coordinators, and parent coordinators are going to be able to start leading some broad understanding of the curricula so parents get a better understanding of this knowledge-based curricula that we're moving towards, which you hear around the city as the science of reading. And that's the work that we're moving towards. Next slide. Just a reminder of all the events that we have this particular year. We would love people to be a part of. Just a funny thing, we're doing Annie Jr. We've moved that date from December 11th, which was yesterday, to April 12th and 13th. And we're gonna do it rather than LaGuardia High School. We're gonna do it at our own Brooklyn Arts High School, Brooklyn High School of the Arts, because we're hoping that our students go there. That's an amazing arts program, an amazing arts school that we love our students to be a part of. And that's the school that's hosting these theater group that is representative of students across the entire district. And we're excited about that work. And obviously a lot of the other showcases that we have across the district, and you can see that accordingly. Next slide. The District 15 Art Showcase is going to be February 15th. From 5 to 7. This is where we're going to showcase the visual arts, fine arts, dance, drama. Different schools are going to be performing and presenting their artwork. We're going to be doing at the Brooklyn Arts High School again because it's going to be in alignment to Principal Vecchiano's walkthrough of the arts. What he does at his school is the whole building becomes an art display, almost like a museum of the students' artwork. And so we're going to be able to display the district's artwork with the high school's artwork collaboratively for a day of celebration, and then also having students perform from the different schools to participate. So we're excited about that day as well. With that being said, next slide talks about class size reduction. You all know that Governor Hochul signed into law September 2022 that requires schools in New York City to reduce their class size. This is what it's supposed to look like. K-3, no more than 20 students. 4-8, 23, high school, 25. Implementation is supposed to take place over the next 5 years. Many of you have seen in today's article in Chalkbeat that talks about some of the recommendations, some concerns and some disagreements, which is expected with the city as large as we are. More than half the class sizes across the city's 1,600 public schools, or more than 73,000 classrooms, are currently not meeting the requirements. Class size analysis for our district, I shared a few months ago, interesting to look at. More classes are over the capacity at this point since September when I shared that information with you. Elementary and middle school classes have increased on average. Middle school, approximately 20% are in compliance. That's down by 20% in September, where we were at 40% in compliance. And elementary schools, approximately 40% are in compliance. That's down by 5% from September. So that just means we're getting more students and we wouldn't meet class size at this very point for several of those schools. What does that mean? Overall, 64% of classes in K-8 are over the limit. That's meaning that 36% of our schools, let me correct myself, 36% of our classes across our entire district are meeting class size requirements as of today. That's without the recommendations, that's without the 5 years we have to implement class size. 3 schools are 100% over the limit. That means that in every class, they have more than the suggested numbers, more than the numbers that are required by the law to have. And that's as of now. We still have 5 years to implement, but this is where we are now. 4 schools only have 1 class in compliance. That's a total of 7 schools, right? 15 Title I schools range from 9% to 71% over the limits, meaning they could have, if it's 20, maybe they have 21, then maybe they have 22. That's considered still over the limit because the limit is the limit, right? Next slide. Class size analysis for high school, our 1 high school. Over 45% of classes in our 9 to 12 are over the class size limit. That means that we are 55% in compliance. We're still 45% out of compliance with our 9 to 12. That's just a tidbit. I have some plans. We've been working on some things to address this. For example, you heard earlier Principal Phillips talking about 321 and the ideas of class size reduction. We're going to be counting on the CEC to also help us when it comes to possibly having to rezone in the near future, and thinking about how do we make adjustments to underutilized schools versus overutilized schools. And I know that that's going to be a lot to address as a community, but we have to think that way if we're going to meet class size in the next essentially 4 years, because we've already have 1 year that we're going through now. We have 2 new schools coming online in our district that might be able to support in some of that work to ease some of that. But again, we're not there. And with schools sharing spaces as well, that's also something that's preventing us from getting there as well, right? Co-located schools with charters, co-located schools with D75 programs, as opposed to inclusion like we have at 958, and some other schools like NEST programs that we have that are already in our public schools. So thinking about how we're going to address that, and I just wanted to bring you up to date as to where we are. We're not where we need to be. Very clear. And that's something that we have to work on, and I would love to work on with our CEC members to think about some interesting ways that we can do this within the guidelines that we have, right? Next slide. Yes. Yes, that I cover. Yeah. 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 Donalda, just to respond to that, one of the issues that we have at 497, as you've heard from previous CEC meetings, is the idea of essentially 4 schools in the same site. It's Boerum Hill High School, Digital Tech, the D75 program, and Success Academy. So those are the 4 sites that are, yeah. But yes, to answer your question, yes. Our next slide is really just our town hall, December 14th at Middle School 51. Doors open at 6 p.m. We start promptly at 6:30. I think the chancellor's there until 7:30. We look forward to having all of our community represented. I've put a charge for all of our schools to have a minimum of 5 people from each school so that we have equal representation, or at least some forms of representation of every school community within this district. And that's been the charge, and we're hoping that our leaders also participate. And with that, Q&A, next slide.
Thank you. Yeah. I'd like to open it up to audience. Do you have any questions, comments? To anyone online, if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the chat or you can raise your hand. All right, and for now, I'll open it up to our CEC members. Is anyone, Hans, Nancy? No, thank you.
They're also translated, by the way. I forgot to tell you, the PowerPoints are translated. CEC already has them. They will be posted on their site, and you also have access to them. So if you have questions at a later time, you're also welcome to email me or anybody on my team, and we'll try to respond as quickly as possible.
Want to just call on the CEC members? Or?
Vanessa?
Given the situation we might be in, students have elevated schools with equipment like an auditorium, are there any district policies on sharing certain equipment? Does each school have to have its own separate set of equipment for performance and systems?
Yeah, the question is around how are the resources used in terms of equipment when shared spaces are used, like an auditorium, a library, multi-purpose room, so on and so forth. So the answer to that question is really through building council, that those conversations happen. There are some schools that keep their materials separate for multiple reasons. For example, if you think about the Borum Hill campus, you have high school students with elementary school students. They're going to need different things. And so each school would relatively purchase their own materials. When you're dealing with two entities that may be from separate divisions, such as New York City Public School and a charter school, they may want to have their own separate materials for multiple reasons. And so through building council is where those relationships are built and determine how that goes. I've seen some sites share their resources, and I've seen some sites not necessarily share their resources. Schools are entitled to do that. If there's issues with schools in terms of their relationships among schools, we can request that building council office, someone from the building council office come to support that building council conversation so that they can start thinking about how they are sharing resources to maximize on the resources they have at a school community, especially with schools that have limited resources or less resources than others. If they're definitely these 15 schools collectively, that's some conversations we could have between the school leaders on my level. And if that doesn't work, bringing building council in to figure out how they share resources.
It's not done? Nancy's out. Nancy? So, last year when we discussed how our schools and whether our schools would be in compliance with the first year of the class size mandate. Things were looking good.
Yes.
Like we were gonna meet the expectation. What has changed? Is New York City not losing enrollment anymore? And
Yeah. Let me. I could address that in multiple ways. I can't pinpoint exactly what the change is. That depends on which district. So, for example, in our district, we're still down 276 students, which is a 1.2% loss of students. But that fluctuates day to day. Yesterday we were at 1.1. Last Friday we were 1.4, and then we went back down to 1.1, and then we went up to 1.2. That's an influx of the changes that are happening. Some of that has to do with families leaving. Some of that has to do with families transferring. When they move from one neighborhood to another, sometimes they transfer schools. So some of that. Some of the other things that have to do with could be based on budgeting and how schools are allocating budgeting. Please note that 3 contracts have been ratified. You have your DC 37 members, you have your UFT members, and you also have your CSA members. And with all those contracts ratifying, salaries have been going slightly up to align with inflation based on whatever was decided with arbitrators, the city, and the unions to determine what their salaries are. Remember that with schools, it's not based on each individual teacher, it's based on teachers' average salary. So they take the highest paid teacher, the lowest paid teacher, comes up with an average, and it's from the year before. That's determining what the average salary is for each teacher. That also impacts decisions that are made at schools. The register projections impacts what happens at schools in terms of decisions that are being made for the number of kids that go into a class. It's also dependent on when it happens. So if I know, for example, that I'm going to have 5 classes or 5 sections of a class, I'm going to schedule for 5 sections of class. Ideally, that's 5 teachers, but if it is an ICT, it would be 6 teachers. If it's, it just depends on what that is. And then students are placed in those classes. But let's say, for example, you have a dual language class and it has 16 students. That class by law still can stay open, right? However, it's not maximizing the resources there. So it could be taking some from resources at another place, so on and so forth. There's a lot of nuances that could impact the reason why some of the decisions were made. When schools, for example, this year were not held harmless and they knew that, some of the decisions that they made may have been impacting how to move forward with some of these particular things. And so not to say that those are the only reasons, there's multiple reasons. What I'm saying is it would be on a school to school basis as to where we are. What I can say is that we are above the city's average. when it comes to meeting class size expectations so far. Our biggest, most struggling areas are sections in Sunset Park and also sections in the Park Slope area, because they're more densely populated with more children, particularly in those particular schools. We're also talking about utilization and overutilization of schools. And that's something that district planning supports and helps us with. And I know they share that report as well. And that report is helpful for us thinking about how we collectively are going to work towards class size reduction in our district.
Are we losing teachers? Am I to interpret what you
For our district, no. For our district, we currently have 11 vacancies in our district, and some of those vacancies are due to maternity, parents who are entitled, or staff who are entitled to take their maternity leave. Some of them are taking FMLA leave. Some of them have taken medical leaves, and so when that happens, the vacancy shows up in our system. So we have that. We have currently about four special ed vacancies. One that's being filled already for 676. She still has one more vacancy. We have an 896 vacancy because that one has to do with bilingual special ed, Chinese bilingual special ed, which is even harder to staff, and we've been working on that. And one other school that has a Spanish special ed. But essentially, we're doing better than the city's average when it relates to staff in our district. In a sense, we have a better retention in this district than many other districts.
Lindsay, I just want to make sure our translators are checking the translation.
I'll
line.
ask, there is one question that came in. It said, hi there, it's from Ann Weaver. It says, hi there, what does not held harmless mean?
Not held harmless means, let's say you were registered projected for 350 students, and now you have 325 students. That means you have a register loss of 25 students. Having a register loss of 25 students means they gave you for 25 students more than what you have. So therefore you have to give that money back to the DOE because they have to redistribute that money to schools that had a register gain. So school A has a register projection for 350. School B has a register projection for 300. School A loses 50 kids for whatever reason. So they have to pay back for the 50 kids because school B ended up getting 350 kids. So they have to redistribute the money from one school to the other. So while schools are being, in this first round after October 31st, have had to give money back in some cases, and many of them were conservative because they put money register set aside and they're already looking at their numbers and starting to see where they can't spend certain money. When they give that money back, then that money is redistributed to schools that are supposed to get money for register increases. So that the distribution of money goes to where the need is based on the number of students, because students are tied to dollars for individual student, which is different than the way universal pre-K works, where it's based on class, right? And so that's the difference. I hope that clarifies for you, Ms. Weber. Weaver, excuse me, Ms. Weaver. Ms. Weaver from 124, yes, I remember.
I'd also like to ask our translators online if you have anyone that has questions. You can put the questions in the chat, or if you'd like to raise your hand.
Well, our translators are here in person.
Oh, we don't have any online?
No.
Oh. Do any of our translators have any questions? I don't think there is. I guess not.
All right. Well, no more questions? Well, thank you,
Okay.
Superintendent Alvarez.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, up next is Yvette.
I can pinpoint so many turning points in my career that happened in this role. Like learning about teaching, reading comprehension, learning how to be a teacher to me, learning how to be a leader.
in the House of Phillips. Hi, Shanice. How are you? Awesome sauce. Gosh, so it is December, which is kind of nuts. I feel like we had a little bit of snow last week, right? I wasn't hallucinating. We did. So therefore, hence my snowy brownstone picture for the month. Not to wish more snow upon us, but it is awfully pretty. Next slide, please. So Brooklyn North High Schools represent 7 school districts, almost 27,000 students. We have the amazing John Jay campus across the street, Digital Tech down the street, Cobble Hill, Sunset Park. And Melissa Moskowitz, the assistant principal of Park Slope Collegiate, was here with me earlier because she heard the President's Council was presenting. And Park Slope Collegiate is a 612, so we feel like we co-parent with Superintendent Alvarez because middle school really should be part of the community school district. So Melissa was here for a little while to pay homage. Next slide, please. So at Brooklyn North High Schools, especially this time of year when in high schools, the holidays bring out all sorts of different intense feelings. So we feel like this time of year more than any other, this idea of being grounded in love is super important. And we have had to handle a few sad events these past couple of weeks and trying to stay within our strength that our schools provide what families need to get through triumphant times and sad times. Next slide, please. Our district vision and mission. It's okay, you can keep advancing. Janice's letter we posted on our website. She was celebrating a lot of what I shared with you guys last month. Our high school fair and our advanced placement successes, and just her good wishes for the holidays to just continue staying grounded in the work. Next slide, please. You can advance one more. So for this month, so just like Raphael, we are also laser focused on attendance, especially as the holidays roll around. Our current district year-to-date attendance is 89%, and in our schools in District 15 is right in line with that. Our chronic absenteeism rate across our 7 districts is 12%, and hooray for District 15, it's only 9%. And this month, I wanted to bring you guys a few highlights around the second goal that we stated here, this idea of a high-quality student experience that's culturally responsive and sustaining. Infused with that, the idea of enhancing the learner experience. So next slide, please. One thing that our district has been really focused on, starting with our principals and then going across our teachers, is this idea of staying present in the idea of neuroscience and how adolescents think and learn. And something that I don't think is news to anyone, especially if you're a parent of an adolescent, this idea of like elasticity of the brain. Like they may be taller than me and they may look like they're grown-ups, but the brain continues to grow and co-regulation is needed until at least age 25. And I can attest to that because my number 2 son is age 25, living in my spare bedroom, really enjoying being co-regulated by his mommy. But this idea that, for over 100 years, this picture of showing students in single desks in a row sadly still exists in many of our schools. And Janice Ross is a one-woman force to try to change that. So at the beginning of the year, we did some work with some neuroscientists and came up with ideas about what the learner experience needs to be grounded in terms of space and technology. And we're kind of setting forth school by school to try to make this happen. Next slide, please. So the physical space. We recently took our principals to Cisco World Headquarters at One Penn, which if you haven't been to, you should, it's super cool. And we had a conference where we were in 6 different rooms, and principals got to pick what room they wanted to be in based on their learning styles. So this first picture on the right is Janice in one room while we're being telebroadcasted to 6 other rooms in the same space. And the principals really got to spend the day, because we talk about it, right? We talk about 21st century learning, we talk about how things need to be different. But if you don't experience it, it's really just talk. So going to the left, these 2 middle pictures are actually from Cobble Hill High School. I recently visited with the Citywide Council on High Schools on this idea of what this can look like in a school. So in the circle next to Janice is actually their law class, and this was a room where the teacher just kind of scavenged furniture from around the building, from down the street, and he created a law room where the center of the room looks like a courtroom. You see the tables where students are facing forward, but then he also created learning areas where you can sit in a group of 4, where you can sit with a partner, where you can sit by yourself and learn in any way you need to. The circle to the left of that is their college room, which a year ago was kind of this really sad looking space. And we worked with a vendor called CDW and a consultant who donated their time to transform this room. So what you're looking at is called a collaborative media space. So students can sit in these circles when they are attending their college classes. So they're interacting via video conference with college professors and college students. Some students go on physical college trips. Other students may choose to engage in virtual college trips. And then the circle to the farthest left is actually our office, which a year ago was kind of a very sad looking closet. And we have transformed it into a space to really, again, show our principals. So when they come to work in our office, they get to experience flexible seating, they get to experience technology, all with the idea that they can go back and inspire this work in their schools. Next slide, please. In addition to the physical space, we are also encouraging some pretty innovative curriculum supports. So the slide in the middle was something we tried at Cisco with our principals, this idea of a playlist, like on your Spotify, where depending on what mood you're in, you can listen to longer music, shorter music, bouncy music, quiet music. So throughout the day, we use this playlist model for the principals to flow in and out of learning spaces. Sometimes they worked individually with a consultant, sometimes they worked in groups. Throughout the day, we had large group check-ins. We introduced new classrooms, which is a super cool math intervention platform where parents and teachers can use the platform to help their student figure out what is their horizon towards mastering Algebra 1. The new classrooms guys have distilled the Algebra 1 regions into, I believe, 41 distinct standards, and they've kind of mapped back in order to be able to do this in 9th grade. What are the foundational skills you need? And it's all computer-based, interactive. And then on the right is Prisms VR. This is our newest partnership, where a math genius who used to work for the Department of Education, who was also fascinated with technology, has now created a curriculum that is based in virtual reality. So we are actually in the process of finalizing a contract so our schools can buy these super cool VR headsets so that when they're engaging in algebra problems, they are physically engaging in algebra problems instead of reading about them in textbooks. So these are just a few of the ways. Next week, we're taking our principals to the Microsoft Conference Center, and one of the partners we have presenting has a virtual reality innovation to physical education. Many of our schools don't have the indoor-outdoor space that we would love for all our kids. So hopefully this technology will be another way to enhance PE, and I will come back and tell you guys about that next time. Next slide, please. And then just happenings in our district, our MBK students spent an evening with Torrance Hampton talking about the idea of genius within every student. And I think last summer I had told you guys that we had students who competed for a grant to take their projects out to our summer programs. So these are 6 students who came back to present to talk about their experience. Caleb developed a program to help students develop their arts portfolios for their audition schools. Michael ran his own health education where it was about fitness and living. Roger and Dexter went around Brooklyn and taught students about maintaining cars, should one ever be so lucky to have one. So it was amazing to kind of hear this established personality talk about the idea of genius, and then having 6 of our young men be able to share their experience where their genius was supported by our team through My Brother's Keeper, and they were able to live their dream for the summer. Next slide, please. And then our MSK students recently went to, I believe this gym is in downtown Brooklyn somewhere, and they got boxing lessons. And that is Janice Ross in the bottom left corner. She did not box, but she did get in the ring because these events are really kind of the heart and soul of what we try to do. This course was about self-defense. 2 nights ago, our young ladies got together to talk about self-care in the stress of holidays. So we'll continue, and I believe, is tonight Tuesday? Yeah, they're at the Big Apple Circus tonight because someone bought out the circus for this evening for students of the Department of Education, and our Sisters Keepers ladies are there tonight. Next slide, please. And then just these are excerpts from our digest that our parent coordinators shared. There's some news from DTEC, some news from Millennium. This was a lot about school spirit. Next slide, please. And then at CASA, you guys, those of you who were here a few months ago, met Valerie Watt, who is the new principal there. Last Friday, the Cyber Arts Studio Academy finally had their first student film showcase. It was amazing. And I'm gonna try to get a copy of the film for you guys. They did kind of their spin on Langston Hughes' I Sing America, and they were all short films created by immigrant students where they interviewed each other, they interviewed the teachers, they infused music. And Valerie really did it up. She turned the John Jay Library into a movie premiere night. There was glitter, there was a runway, there were mocktails. We're really excited about Valerie and CASA, and we'll continue to bring you news from what's happening across the street. Next slide, please. And as always, the different ways to stay in touch with us. And from all of us at Brooklyn North High Schools, we wish everyone a most wonderful, healthy holiday, Raphael. Healthy holiday. We're going to enjoy and not be sick.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'd like to open it up to our audience and any of our translators. If there are any questions, comments? Also to anyone online, you can put a comment or question in the chat or raise your hand. To our CEC members, anyone over on this side? No? Anyone? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for
All right, everybody. What's on the agenda next? All right, maybe we could have our members sort of back up in their seats. Okay, so we have a special election right now. Our president had to step down from the role. I don't know if Nancy, if you want to say anything. Oh wait, who's that going? Okay. And we will have to have a special election for the role of president. So I don't know if you want to
Sure.
say anything.
Thank you, Antonia. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody online. Thank you so much, Antonia, for being a rock star, for stepping in. Yes, many. Yes. I am very fortunate that I have had work really pick up for me. I'm a freelancer. I don't talk about my work, but I'm a freelancer, and things are going in a really positive direction, and that means that I simply don't have the ability to dedicate myself to the council in the way that the council really needs. And for that reason, I had to step down, and gratefully, Antonia has kept everything going and is making it awesome. So
My motto, making it awesome.
So I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for understanding, and I'll turn it back to Antonia.
Okay. All right. So I have here. This is the script. This is the face script for special elections. The first thing we need to do is we need to elect a chair pro tem. And the chair pro tem is somebody who will not be running for the seat of president. And that person conducts the election until the president is elected, at which point the president takes over the election in case other seats were vacated in the process. So I do plan to throw my hat in the ring for the seat of president. And so I will hand this script to whoever it is that the body elects as chair pro tem. Would anyone like to nominate themselves? Okay, Nancy has nominated herself as chair pro tem. Would anyone like to second that nomination?
I second Nancy's nomination.
Vanessa seconds. Okay, let's go down. Nancy C., will you call the roll for voting for the chair pro tem?
Certainly, Council Member Nancy Randall, I guess it's.
Approved.
Yes. Great. Councilmember Antonia Ferraro.
Yes, I approve.
Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez Wilcox.
Approved.
Councilmember Nancy Cruz approved. Councilmember Donaldo Chumley. Councilmember Leslie King approved. Councilmember Panzarieta approved. Councilmember Mamoon Rashid. Oh, stepped out.
Stepped out.
Councilmember Jonathan Davis. Okay.
And that's
with that,
seven
we have
people,
seven.
right? Okay, well, it's actually
It
eight.
is approved.
Okay, so I am going to hand this script to Nancy, and she is going to conduct the election.
All right. Thank you, Antonia. We will to elect officers, we will vote upon each position before moving on to the next, so that any candidate not elected to an office can run for others. I will take nominations. Members can nominate themselves. If a member is nominated by another member, I will confirm that that member accepts the nomination. If a member is not present but has submitted their nomination in writing to Shanice or another member, they will be treated the same as any member who is present, including having a 2-minute statement read aloud by someone else. Each nominee will be allowed to make a speech of up to 2 minutes. Following the candidates' presentations, we will conduct a roll call vote. All positions must be voted on, even if there is only one candidate. Where there are 2 or more candidates, each member must make a choice and vote for one or the other. Members may abstain from voting. If no candidate receives at least seven votes, we will move on to the next position and return to undecided positions at the end. If a position remains unfilled over 2 or more rounds of voting, the incumbent will continue in the position. New elections for all unfilled positions must be put on the agenda of the following month's calendar meeting. Is the procedure clear to all members? Yes? Yes? Okay. So we will start with the election of president. We will elect the council president. Are there any nominations for the office of president? Antonia Ferraro nominates herself. Are there other nominations for the office of president? Seeing no other nominations for the office of president, nominations for the office of president are now closed. I will now call each candidate in alphabetical order to make a statement of up to 2 minutes. After our candidate has spoken, we will proceed with a roll call vote. Antonia, could you kindly make a statement?
Sure. So, I've been a member of the CEC for almost 7 years now. I was elected to 3 terms, and this is my 4th term as a borough president appointee. I would really like your vote because I have the institutional knowledge, having worked on this council for so long. I've hired 3 AAs. This is the 3rd AA I've hired and trained over that period of time. And you know how long it takes to hire somebody in the DOE. So there was a year in which that seat was vacant. And I've basically been the AA, Shanice, 3 times in 7 years. So I have the institutional knowledge, I have the demonstrated commitment, I have the time, I don't have a full-time job. And I support the mission of equitable education that is in the mission statement of this council and the mission statement of our district. So I hope that I have earned your support as president of CEC 15. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Antonia. We will now proceed with a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nancy Randall,
Yes.
Councilmember Antonia Ferraro,
Yes.
Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez Rocca,
Yes.
Councilmember Nancy Cruz, Councilmember Donalda Choni,
Yes.
Councilmember Leslie King,
Yes.
Councilmember Hans Arieta,
Yes.
Councilmember Mamoon Rashid is present. Councilmember Jonathan Davis.
Yes.
And with that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, more than 7.
Congratulations, Antonia. You have been elected to serve as council president for the remainder of 2023 and all of half of 2024. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I now turn it over to you.
Okay, so, huh? I didn't
What did
hear
he
that.
say?
I didn't hear it. Pay raise? Yes, pay raise. So since I have become president, I have vacated the seat of VP1, and we must hold an immediate election to fill the seat of co-VP1. Are there any nominations for the office of co-VP1? Okay. Are there any other nominations? I feel like I should call it again. Are there any other nominations for co-VP1? The nominations are now closed. And Leslie, would you like to say anything?
It has been an incredible experience so far being on the CEC. I feel like I'm learning a lot. It's growing on work that I've already done at the schools that my children are at, and elementary school, middle school, and high school. And I hope that through this time I continue to grow and learn and become more involved within our community and helping our schools. I'm terrible at speeches, but I'm really grateful to be here right now.
Thank you. All right. Nancy, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Nancy Randall.
Doesn't change immediately.
I'm sorry?
What do you mean?
I'm no longer person on this.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Okay.
That's,
Yes. Councilmember Antonio Ferraro.
yes, I support Leslie.
Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Nancy Cruz. Yes. Councilmember Renalda Chumley. Yes. Councilmember Leslie Cruz.
Yes.
Councilmember Helen Kayeta.
Yes.
Councilmember Manu Rashid.
Yes.
And with that, Leslie is officially.
Well, you forgot someone.
Oh,
Who did I forget?
Jonathan.
Davis, and you were on the next page. Councilmember Jonathan Davis, last but not least.
okay. Thank you, Leslie, for stepping up. All right. We have now vacated the seat of parliamentarian. It's musical chairs. So we need to elect a parliamentarian. Are there any nominations for the office of parliamentarian? And, you know, I know this is an odd office, so if you would like some more information about what the parliamentarian does, I will grant a moment for Leslie to maybe explain what the parliamentarian does.
I just explained to Jonathan that I'm allowed to.
So please explain.
You run the meetings, you greet everybody, explain what the terms of engagement are at our meetings. And then once we have somebody presents information, you ask our audience members if they would like to participate or add anything or ask questions. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, timekeeping can be an important role for the parliamentarian, and just making sure that all the different possible platforms of people are invited into the room during public comment, be them in person or on the Zoom or in the interpretation room. So keeping track of what's going on in the meeting and keeping us on time. All right. So are there any nominations for parliamentarian?
I nominate Jonathan.
Oh, well, you can do that, actually.
You cannot do that?
You can. No, you can nominate. You But Jonathan has to accept.
If nobody else wants to do it,
Do we, do we have any other nominations for the office of parliamentarian? Jonathan, do you accept?
I accept.
Okay. The nominations for parliamentarian are now closed. And Nancy C. will call the roll.
Does he make a statement as well?
Oh, yes. But he, you know, I feel bad for him, but.
When duty calls. Thank you for these nominations. I am honored. I have recently learned parliamentary procedure. After decades of not understanding it, I think I understand it a little bit now. I'm just excited to be a part of the CEC. I also, as my first term, have learned so much just in the first few months this year, and there's so much amazing work that this council has already done in such a short period of time, and I'm just excited to be a part of such a great team. So, thank you.
Yes. Councilmember Antonia Ferrara,
Yes.
Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez Roca. Yes. Councilmember Nancy Cruz, yes. Councilmember Donaldo Chummy. Yes. Councilmember Leslie Keith. Yes. Councilmember Hans Arieta.
Yes.
Councilmember Mahmoud Rashid.
Yes.
And last but not least, Councilmember Jonathan Davis.
Yes. Okay, all right, yes. Oh, you need it, okay. And then maybe pass it back to member. All right, we have a full house. Thank you all. So the elections are now closed, and we can go to a general public comment period, and maybe Leslie can turnkey that too. Or maybe we'll just wait till, I don't know, maybe you can work on it together. You can just sort of.
We are now open to public comments.
There you go.
Anybody in the audience who has a comment or question?
I just want to say thank you to the CEC for everything you do. I hope they come out to these meetings in person, because my wife wants to spotlight and I gotta stay home with the kids, you know. But because it was a joint meeting today, I had the honor of coming out. Great to see all the faces that I normally see very flat. And I just want to say congratulations to the three of you for your positions. Antonia, this is all you. You definitely deserve it. Your leadership has been profound impact on our district for so long. It's been a real highlight of my work and my activism to do a lot of that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Very sweet.
Any other comments or questions? Audience here? Translators? People on Zoom?
Okay, all right, so at that, I'm going to adjourn the calendar meeting and immediately, so I'm going to adjourn the calendar meeting at 8:36, Nancy, and I'm going to immediately open up the business meeting at 8:36. And, ooh, we're early. We are early. Oh my God. We're 20 minutes early. All right. So let's call the roll.
Okay.
All right, here, I'll move this one.
I will calling the roll now.
I'll move it down for you.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. Councilmember Nancy Randall.
Here.
Great. Councilmember Antonia Ferraro,
Yes.
Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez Oca, Councilmember Nancy Cruz present, Councilmember Tony, Councilmember Leslie King, Councilmember Hans Arieta, Councilmember Lauren Barkin is absent, Councilmember Mahmoud Rashid.
Yes.
Councilmember Danny Goodell is absent, Councilmember Jonathan Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Yu Lee is absent.
Okay. You know, Nancy, you might want to refresh the Google because I gave you the editing privileges. I didn't realize you were just a comment. So if you refresh the Google, just refresh it, you'll be able to, you won't have to, it'll be easier for you. Yeah.
I think the Wi-Fi is slow.
The Wi-Fi is slow, okay. Okay. If there's nobody who needs translation, we can let the translators go. Oh. Shanice will sign your timesheets. If there's no one who is requiring translation services, okay, so let's move on to the minutes for October 10th. Oh, Nancy, this is your job. You need to do this.
Yes. Putting forth request for approval of the minutes for October 10th, 2023. So do we roll call that?
No, I mean, you can just ask if anybody has any questions or changes they want to make, and then you can we can approve them if there are no objections.
So does anybody have any questions or changes they'd like to make to the minutes as posted on the agenda? No. Oh, and also in our folders. And if not, are there any objections to approval of the minutes? So,
You can just say,
just a general-
minutes approved without objection.
Yeah, so minutes approved without objection, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. All right, so I'm gonna move on to the budget conversation, and I'm gonna turn it over to Donalda.
Everyone, you all may know, I'm not sure how long this is broadcast, but and we found out, but we face for the Department of Education. Hold on. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks. Okay, I'll start over, sorry. Antonia got the news last week that the Department of Education or New York City Public Schools, or FACE specifically, are crediting our district's budget $10,000 back from the adjustment we made to the administrative assistant's salary. And so we have to well, when I say we, this time I mean me, I have to adjust the budget and put in a line that says unallocated and put the $10,000 next to it. So there are options for how that money can be allocated, and we of course decide that as a council. Antonia, I don't know what's on the budget or what's on the agenda right now in terms of the next things that we need to do before we leave. If people want to have a discussion about what potentially the $10,000 is going to go to or could go to, Now, later, up to you.
I think we have a few minutes.
Okay.
Maybe some minutes, I think we can talk about that.
Okay.
I'll just kick it off by saying I think that our administrative assistant, her travel expenses are only $250, and, $30 of potential depending on which school we have to go to. I can see that quickly. So I would like to propose raising the AA's travel expenses to at least $500.
Yeah, cool.
I also would really like a line for family and community events, which I know what I can look up what that object code is. It is object code. I'll try to get that to you.
I think that's in the prior year's tab.
Oh.
So don't worry, you don't have to do anything. But what type of dollar amount are you thinking?
I'm just thinking back to when Jenny Fox came to our meeting and she asked for $400 and we didn't have $400. I don't know. What do you think? 1,000?
I think that given the needs of different schools and programs and the questions on budgets and the issues we bring from the FDA today, I think. And it could be larger than that.
Okay.
I'll be here because we allocate later as needed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. She's suggesting between 3 and 5. We do have $10,000 to distribute, so, I'm comfortable with 3 to 5 or 5. I don't know. So let's say 5, but then we have to see what else.
So it's totally fine if I go back and leave the other $4,500 or roughly that unallocated, and we can revisit this discussion when we meet next. And in the meantime, folks can do a little bit of research as to what items might be most beneficial, or talk to friends and other CECs, or everybody on Zoom, reach out and make your impression felt. So that we can sort of canvass our schools and our other people that we talk to in our community. Is that okay? We'll have an open discussion for next time.
Sure. Would you actually have a conversation about what she feels?
Yes.
We may need technology.
Right.
How's our printer doing? The printer is going to fly.
Most definitely.
We need more supplies. We need to put more on the people. I think you two probably need to have a phone call about the office needs.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Yes.
To be honest with you, the only thing like that. There was a big outlay of technology in the years where we transitioned to the right. Yeah, you can look back at all those things. All right, great.
Thank you so much.
So, discussion on the SCA capital plan and school visits. Where are you guys on things? Maybe we should, does anybody have any reports that they tonight on their schools? Okay.
Sure. Do you just want me to go through the SCA requests from the different schools?
Sure.
Okay. So I am liaising with 4 different schools, and I'll just go in order that's on the form here. So I did a school tour of PS 130, which is housed in 2 different buildings. And so I'll talk about first the lower school, which they are the only school within that building, and then I'll talk about the upper school that is co-located. So in the lower school, they are kind of bursting at the seams in terms of students. And then when you look at their bathrooms, especially on their 3rd and 5th floors, the bathrooms have 1 stall and multiple urinals. And so the bathrooms cannot accommodate the students who are on those floors, and they're having to go to different floors in the building just to be able to go to the bathroom. And so they had said that it was brought up last year at the CEC and was voted as one of the top 5 that was voted. I didn't see that in the notes, but they followed up with me again today, and I saw it in my building tour and took some pictures of it. But that's the biggest need, is the fact that they just need more toilets and fewer urinals in those different bathrooms to accommodate all the different students. There are also a few other things. The fence on the outside is really poor quality and really can't be locked, and so there's a lot of makeshift trying to secure the fence. And so they recognize that it's most schools in the district are dealing with fence issues, but they wanted me to raise that as well. They also have a need for water fill stations because the water fountains aren't really working well, and they had people come to check out putting in those fill stations that allow for the water bottles. They're more energy efficient, they have the space for it. So that's something they would like to be able to install for their students and staff. And then as you move to the upper school, if you go into the bathrooms, the faucets, they need longer sink faucets because they're so short that the kids who are in elementary school can't get their hands under the faucet, so nobody's washing their hands. So they just need long, it seems very small, but it's quite impactful, especially in a school with so many kids and germs and cold season. So they would love to be able to have more functional sinks. So that's PS 130. I also visited with Gorham Hill School, and there's also a need of some renovations to their bathrooms, especially on the 2nd floor, the boys and staff bathrooms. They need adult-sized toilets because they have toilets for elementary school kids, and so it just does not work well for the middle schoolers. And since it's a middle school and high school, for the high schoolers as well. And some of the toilets in the staff rooms just aren't functioning well, so they just would like functioning bathrooms. They also are in need of 10 air conditioners, which I know we don't need them. Right now it's not the season where they're going to feel that need, but they still are in need. But this when I visited a month ago, they were still in need of those 10 air conditioners that they had raised during, I think, back in August originally. And in terms of shared space, which was brought up earlier, there are 4 schools in the building, but the auditorium is in need of some updating there. New curtains, new lights, a sound system. There's been leaking in the sound system, so they just want to be able to make that functional and updated. And their chemistry lab just doesn't have the needs to be able to function as a chemistry lab, so they're really in need of some new sinks and outlets and cabinets in their chemistry lab. In terms of MS 839, which is co-located with the upper school of PS 130, they have some cracked windows and leaks and stains in the AP office. I know it's not an instructional space, but in terms of the administrators, they would love to be able to get that fixed because it's not good to have leaky spaces in the school. They also are looking to get their smart boards replaced because there are a lot of non-functioning smart boards. In terms of shared space, I want to raise this to the council because I don't know the answer, but supposedly the borough president's office had granted some kind of fund for a rooftop garden in hydroponics pre-COVID, and it had architects come to measure, done the work, initial sketching of what would be done, but then the COVID hit and there hasn't been follow through. So they raised it with me, knowing that it was a different borough president at the time. It was Adams was the borough president when that happened. So I don't know who we did.
Can you just like shoot me an email about it and then I'll shoot it over to you?
Yep. And I believe that's it. The other one I raised at a previous meeting in terms of Star Academy, the District 75 school, that's co-located with Thornhill School. There's just issues over the shared space and the building utilization plan in terms of space being taken away by Success Academy for their related services that have been promised to them. So I could raise that again, but I know that discussions have already been had and resolutions to not go over. That was a lot. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all that. Women, do you have anything? Yeah. Okay. Leslie? So I was able to get, but I did receive the children's school. One thing they are listed as a 275 school, and they said that they're not necessarily a 275 school. So, but the children's school is not a 275 school. So it's under a D75 president within the district to geographically within the district. And it is an inclusion program, right? But they're not under our. Some of the issues that they have is that. But they want to be part of that. And they this role one? Our district. Yeah. And so there's like this issue with the industry team with it's the children's school, right? And they were saying that they are, their campus in Fort Greene is a decent class school, but that the children's school is not. But Antonio was saying it's an improvement school. In White Hill, or yeah, or Kiwanis. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, and then they were saying that they don't get recognized as a district school. And so like they're in District 15 and they're doing a play, but their kids aren't allowed to audition for the play. So this care coordinator that looks at these. So I would raise that with Alvarez. Okay.
It's different for different superintendents, and that's the problem. So we have other schools that are geographically located in the team.
So there was a couple of things that they had to very So if I'm bringing this stuff up here, RCC, I'm amazing. How would I bring up her issues? They're not necessarily
it's all the SEA capital plan list, we can add all of that to our list. And they can also add those things to the, this is 75, superintendent districts. They have multiple satellites.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they can add issues that the district 13 school district 13. I would not add
Any of their issues of coaching in the families.
the Gowanus campus is in district 15, yeah, so we can put those things on. But I wouldn't put things on a list that were in a different district. But if they have another satellite, for free, yeah, I wouldn't put those things on.
Okay, so the issues that they're having is they have a temporary rule. It's in their place, their space, that they're prepared. And then from the, there's lots of flooding in the school. It was cleaned by janitors, but there wasn't like, there's some molding, this is something else being figured out, and what to do if when it happens again, if it will happen again. There's also drains, by some of the doors where leaves and debris sort of gather, and so water would pool there, and that was just sort of like going to the top. And then the other thing is, this is like something else, they need their school, if there's an emergency, is across the Gowanus into Carroll Gardens. And we were discussing like if there's an emergency and they have flooding like they did, them going to school in Carroll Gardens is actually not a good option. It's a safe school for them. Because that's probably going to be one of the biggest issues that they're going to have. So that's all, that's the beginning of it. Everything is sort of around is right out.
Yeah, so, in this, has an upper school that's placed under SCA construction. So those needs are being met. They have a lower school, it's two separate locations. And so the lower school is a separate location, and that's the east building from a church. And they would love a makeover of their schoolyard, but because it's a lease building, then the question is that whose responsibility is that? Is that possible for them to request it since it's leased? That's it for 886. And then PS 29 has old pipes, old fixtures, and their bathrooms get backed up. Their flushometers work poorly, and they are changing the flushometers, fortunately. They are, however, not changing pipes. So that's something that they desperately need is overhaul all of the pipes to see everything. When I visited, they only put one boiler working, like 2 boilers and 7 boilers working. They do have an accessibility plan in place, and they're waiting for it to happen. They received reservation funding for their auditorium chairs, so now they're just hoping that everything gets lined up so that all the work is done for the accessibility work and the auditorium
really, they're loving it.
Got anything?
So, for the building for Brooklyn High School of the Arts in 447. Brooklyn High School of the Arts is so last year they had requested an updated air conditioning system for all the common areas. They didn't get it, so they just spent about $500,000 renovating all the air conditioning system out of their budget. But now what they do need is an upgrade to the auditorium, and that they had a recent invoice issued to them for about $100,000. Yeah, $100,000. And that includes the lighting, that includes equipment, that includes electrical work, sound amplifier systems, all kinds of things that need renovation, especially for a school that is providing not only a space for their students, but for the district itself to operate. Accessibility just throughout the building for both 447 and the high school is an issue, continues to be an issue. So making the entrances accessible for children that need accommodations. There will be a benefit to both schools, and especially to 447, if we take the space that is given to 447 seriously, and it feels like a gel inside, and there's no outdoor space whatsoever for the children to go to during recess time. So there is the space up at the roof that they would like to have convert into some sort of garden or green space, to give not only the chance for children to be outside during school hours, but to create some science projects around it, and be able to utilize that space for school purposes as well, for academic purposes. The gym, the floor still needs work. They requested or reissued the request for volleyball flooring, so that grommets, I think they're called, so they can use it in that way. That'll be for those two schools. And then, give me a second. For 39, I have not been able to talk to the principal. It turns out that her email address is different than the one I've been trying to reach her at. So that's pending. And then for 154, they're requesting playground equipment, and they are requesting the dream request will be an elevator for accessibility purposes.
Did you get the email address from the DOE page? I'm curious. Vanessa.
Oh, you're asking?
Yes. The one that you said was wrong. Was it from the DOE page?
No, so they
from their
have
website?
like their own website.
Okay,
So email,
all right.
yes, but then I was able to get her through the parent coordinator. So we're still trying to we're working on it.
All right. So MS 51, I visited, and I think probably the most critical issue that was going on there, that's probably not infrastructural, I'm not sure, is their telephones. I know that the superintendent's aware now. They don't have, he's not here, I'm pointing, but he's not here. After the flooding, they were having trouble with the phone. After the flooding, they definitely didn't have any phones. They were using, Julia, the parent coordinator, was using her own cell phone. It clearly is a very big issue for safety. So they really need this addressed, and we've been emailing back and forth for a while. As I said, the superintendent is involved in this conversation.
I'm not sure if that goes on the infrastructure plan though, does it?
Put it in the list, and then I'm gonna, after this meeting, send all this to Carmine.
Okay.
And Carmine's gonna go through it, and he's gonna tell me where it should go.
Okay, all right. And then the other issue, which is a huge issue for them as well, is they have it's an old school building and the electrical is very outdated. And so it affects the ability to use air conditioners, and they're getting a bunch of new smart systems, and they said they don't have places to plug them. So they really, there's a Spanish saying, Dios te da pan al que no tiene dientes. Like they get these beautiful systems and they can't plug them in. But anyway, so that's to me, that was their biggest infrastructural issue that they wanted addressed. And not having the electrical creates all sorts of issues in the classroom, in the use of the building. And then 295, I haven't been able to see in person, but I was in communication with the principal. And the parent coordinator also sent me some information, and I know we have the PTA president, so I'll go through here, and if there's anything you want to add. So she mentioned that some of the doors are broken, which creates a safety, security risk if intruders are in the building. She said the water fountains on the ground floor and first floor are outdated and break frequently, leading to leaks. Two of the classrooms have inoperable phone systems. So they said it's not the phone, it has to be the jack or the wiring. So I guess similar to what's going on with 51. This produces a safety risk, obviously, if the teacher needs to call for help. The door that leads to the school playground isn't alarmed, so although it's a gated area, it's fenced in, the yard, if a kid leaves the building, there isn't going to be an alarm that goes off, like the exits. So they would like to have that fixed. Let's see. So this, I'm not sure how infrastructural this is, but these are issues that they're having. This is from the parent coordinator. So the air conditioning is a big issue. Doesn't cool down the auditorium. Cafeteria doesn't have air conditioning. The library doesn't cool down the space. It's not sufficient. So building, they said the outlets, they don't have enough outlets in the rooms. Let's see. They said the internet is problematic. It drops and it's slow. And they have a projector in the auditorium, has a problem going up and down. A walkthrough has been done, but so far no response as to when it can be fixed. So that needs to be, I guess, pressed. And since you're here, is there anything that I didn't mention that you think should be on this list?
That's a pretty good list. One thing that I talked about with our principal and also earlier is when the new playground used to be the teacher parking lot back there was built out, there was temporarily a power outlet out there. And a lot of activities back there, so we couldn't move power, so it's a little dangerous because we're having to like run a long power cord from the pre-K room down to that playground. So I don't know what the deal is with underground buildings and putting the external outlets in. Be a community that uses that space, especially the school.
It's actually in here. I didn't mention it. It's on the list, sorry.
Well, that's already there, sorry. And the other thing that I would say, which
No, but it needs to go on the list so we can put it on the appropriate.
Is it the projector?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned it. Oh, okay.
No. So it's the auditorium is shared. That's the new place in 2005. And the soundboard that runs everything, it's a very expensive piece of equipment, between $5 and $10 million. There is one there, but it is only purchased many years ago. The arrangement for a long time was that having shared the 295, but it no longer is here. The reason I'm not that.
A soundboard, he said. I don't know what a soundboard is, but.
I can try to make it too, but I can make it.
It's okay. You know, I've been trying to reach out to the principal there and have not heard back, so I'll see if maybe that we can discuss that.
I think it would be nice if the principal.
It would surely be a good thing. And as the superintendent was saying, if it's not happening, there are ways to facilitate that, right? too.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna move my computer down so we can hand that off. Do you have any, did you make a report last time?
I saw your report, and you know, it almost was like something like the beginning. I've been working 124, very amazing school, really good. Staff is very dynamic, security is amazing, all the doors locked, security cameras. I just, that is not a big deal, but just like the backyard, like the patio they have for the kids is really big. It's amazing space for the kids, but I think I need like a little work, you know. So, but I still work on details with all the PT. And I've been working a little more with the community, you know, working with giving support to the kids from shelters, and the community are helping a lot. They get a lot of support. And the other school, I just make contact with them. They finally invite me to come to their school, so I will be there.
Oh, yes, you did send me.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go see around what I can find. But I just want to talk about it. One thing, if this is the case. Respectfully, with all my respect to, you know, the construction, the school's construction authority, you know, it's anyway, like I can go one day, find to the office and go with them. I'm a maintenance worker, I'm a mechanic maintenance worker. I do maintenance work in hospitals. So I'm very involved with the maintenance of the hospital, you know, so my boss told me, we know what to do. We got to do the right thing, the right job, and make things, you know, in the right way, so nobody get hurt, and we don't have to come back 2 times, and you know, we save all this money too. So is there any way, how can I go to the office, the construction authority, and see how they doing, how they working with the schools, like, you know, because I see also, I go to into the website of the city from many schools, and it's like a big list of things like it's not being repaired, you know, like for years. Actually, so I think it's very frustrated, like for principals, you know, schools, like, you know, like see all these problems all the time. So I would like to know, I want to help. I don't want to, you know, go over there and say, wow, be the, no, I just want to help to see if, like, I can have a vision and can create a better dynamic, learn a little bit more about how we can improve how we can fix the schools. Okay, hospitals are very important, but I think schools are very, very important too, you know. Especially for the little ones.
Who you would want to talk to is the Division of School Facilities. So SEA builds the building, right? And they do the big renovation of like an entire auditorium. But like repairs is the Division of School Facilities.
School facility.
They directly work with the custodians. And so if that's sort of what you're interested in.
Yes.
I mean, we could put you in touch with Carmine Francesi.
That would be great. Wonderful, yes.
Him whatever questions you want. I'm gonna take this list and I'm gonna forward it to Carmine, who's in the Division of School Facilities.
Okay.
And we can invite him back to another meeting as well. I mean, he came at the very beginning.
Yes, I think that would be very important to.
But we can invite him back.
That would be great, yes. Yeah.
Was he on the list that the superintendent gave us of people to contact? He gave us a list of all names and email addresses. It's on the drive, I'll check.
So yeah, because I mean his email phone number, I know I have it, but you know,
Yeah.
it would be easy. So I can speak to him, go to him and see like what if we got a better vision, like if we can fix the problems of the schools, like what we need to do, you know, like how we can improve this, how we can go.
Be careful, they might give you a job.
Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay. I'm good. I just would like to, you know, help this thing with the schools, like go a little over, not keep the same, you know, if it's possible. I'm not, you know, with all my respect, I don't want to offend nobody. Yeah.
Nalda, do you have the report?
Sure.
You could just pull it that way.
One of the budget items can be a longer microphone cord or a microphone for everybody. I don't really have a facilities report as much to say that out of the last facilities report that I gave, we talked about coats for students in pre-Ks. And I wanted to extend a special thanks to Christine Farrell. Thank you so much for being here and for doing all the work that you do. And especially Rachel Laurie Weber, who has managed, working together alongside principals in our district, has managed to make sure that there are 0 unmet coat needs at this point, which is really huge. That's extraordinary, and it wouldn't have happened without your coordination. So thank you so much for being so skillful in doing it. And Rachel really has quite a network of folks. So she is not on this meeting right now, but I do want to say thanks very much. And hopefully you can pass that along to her. I think that's all for me for now. Thank you.
All right, so, like I said, I know that some people are still trying to get in touch with schools, but I want to get this list to Carmine so that we have more information at that first business meeting when we have to vote on our top 5. You don't want to waste those slots on something that isn't really appropriate for SCA. And so I kind of feel like I need to give Carmine some time before the holidays to do this, and I don't want to spring this on him. So what do you think is an appropriate deadline to put on filling out that spreadsheet for everybody? We may miss some people. They'll end up on the list still, and we will consider them with everything else. But I really want to prioritize giving Carmine the time he needs, because he's doing this for us. I don't know that he does this for every district. I mean, we ask him to do it, and he does it. I don't know that every district asks him to do it. So what, do you mind if I would really like to send it to him by Friday. Is that crazy? I mean, it doesn't mean that anything that comes in after Friday will still end up on the spreadsheet. It's just that Carmine won't look at it. Is that okay with everybody? It's Friday by noon.
So is he getting the working document, so in case?
Yes,
he
he's getting the working document. No, then we have to clean it up and send it.
Would it make sense to, if we want to add information after this Friday?
They can still add it.
But to maybe enter it with a different font color, so that we will use the rules that I did not look at yet, so that maybe on it, we can use these ones. I just want to be equitable in some way.
Now that I think about it, we won't really know, because he'll just sort of be in the Google Doc with everybody else, and we won't know really when he has looked at it until he says, okay, I'm done. And
unless we just download it.
no, I'm just gonna give him access. I mean, I guess you could go in there and look, and if he's put a bunch of comments, then you'll know, okay.
Something he gets added, you can reassign.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. Okay, so everybody just do their best to fill out that spreadsheet the best they can. I'm gonna.
So I just have a question about that. I mean, there are things that are obviously don't belong on that, so I would put it on. You're saying
Put everything on, then we will move things to a separate list for facilities. Okay. All right, thank you for all of your reports. That was really great. I will move on to old business. Does anybody have any old business? I just want to raise the issue. I think we should start to have schedule a bylaws committee meeting, and I think we should consider putting the hybrid resolution on an agenda. Maybe that meeting can take place in December. January, in January. That's the only old business that I want to raise.
For January, we have the meeting in January.
Yes, that meeting is going to be the deliberations over what we finally submit, the final draft that we submit to SEA, the 5 top projects, and I find that meeting tends to take a long time for some reason, and I don't know how to speed that up.
Yeah, do we have it, do we have the calendar and the business meeting both on the night?
No, the 9th is just the business, and the calendar is on the 29th. No, sorry, no, the 30th. And that will be at PS 94.
There's also a Monday meeting?
That is a joint president's council meeting on Zoom. When we are going to go to them in their space.
Oh.
Yes. And then I hope to see you all Thursday. Tomorrow, our FACE representative called another final sort of prep meeting. I hope to see you if you're available. Thank you to the members who are going to ask and sort questions. We may need one more person to sort questions, because what tends to happen is there's somebody who sits on that end and somebody who sits on that end sorting the questions. So when you come on Thursday, if you're available, maybe you can help sort questions. Okay. Yes, I would say definitely be there at 6. We won't have these computers in front of us. FACE is doing all of the tech. What are they called? Good times? Or it's not good times. Learning times, not good times. So yeah, be there with your bells on. Chance. All right, thank you so much. I adjourn this meeting at 9:25.
So let's put it on the agenda for the, because I think I might be out of